Okay, pretty good day, huh? Well, thank you, Andrew Yancey. Thank you for the person who put this little podium thing here, but I'm going to see. Okay, can you guys still see me out there? Okay, then I'm going to stay here so I can see this. So thank you, Dean Moran. Thank you to the wonderful faculty and staff of UCLA Law School. And of course, many thanks to you, the graduating class of 2012, for inviting me here today. So my theme is about how all of you, every single one of you, can be part of advancing social justice as lawyers, and how the time that people might say that you are, quote, wasting on Facebook or Twitter or Tumblr or Instagram or whatever it is you do is actually a potential essential part of your fight for social justice. Okay? So that's what you're going to learn here. Now, I have to see if I have a little bit of a cultural divide here in my audience. So for everyone wearing a graduation gown, so that's not you guys back here, those of you here, raise your hand if you actually use Facebook or Twitter or some other social media to talk to people. Raise your hand if you do that. Okay? Bunch of hands. Okay, so now for all the folks over there and back here, how many of you use Facebook or Twitter or something else on a regular basis to talk to people? Raise your hands high. Okay. A fair amount, I didn't even look over there, but okay. Fair amount, although not as many as here. So I just want to let you know that I have written this speech to be intelligible to people on either side of this cultural divide. But if some of you on one side of the divide, I can get to move to the other side by the end of this speech, that'll be part of what we call persuasive speaking as a lawyer. Okay? Okay, so here's the full disclosure. I'm a Twitter fiend. Now, you can all follow me at Chai Feldblum, right? Very easy. I just passed 1,000 followers last week, so you guys just get me going towards 2,000, and, you know, you can tweet during the speech. I actually think that's totally cool, so long as you're tweeting my speech, okay? So, here's the thing. For purposes of this talk, what's important is that the time I spend on Twitter and Facebook is completely entwined for me with my work as a lawyer and my work as social justice. So let me explain. Based on the almost 30 years I have spent in this profession, I believe that to achieve any social justice goal, you need at a minimum for 3 variables to converge: law, policies and practice, and social norms. Law, policies and practice, and social norms. So let me explain what I mean by that. By law, I mean the text of a statute as written and enacted by a legislature, federal, state, local. Also, the text of regulations issued by an agency, again, federal, state, local. And finally, the text of court decisions that you heard about, all you guys reading those, right? Court decisions either interpreting the statute or regulation, or if there's no statute, developing common law and constitutional law. In other words, lots of words. By policies and practice, I mean how the text of a law, whether embodied in a statute, a regulation, a court case, is actually absorbed into the sinews of an organization. Whether and how a country's legal obligations, formal legal requirements, are truly ingrained in the practices on the ground. And by social norms, I mean the underlying normative assumptions or beliefs that are necessary to the full achievement of a social justice goal. This variable is about changing hearts and minds. So let's talk about each one. First, law. We tend to think about law as the all-important variable in terms of achieving social justice. Now, let me be clear. I love laws. I often say I don't have kids, I have laws. Right? And instead of it's a boy, it's a girl, it's a law. See? And my first law, as you heard, was the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990. That year, 22 years ago, Congress passed a law prohibiting discrimination against people with disabilities. Now, all of you parents over there, you know that your kids, they go off to school, they meet friends, suddenly they come back, they got purple hair, they got nose rings, you're like, who are you? Well, laws go off to court, and they meet judges. And suddenly, the laws don't look like what you, the legislature, thought you had passed. Because judges are doing what they're supposed to do. They're interpreting the text of the law. And in that way, they create law. So the courts, including the Supreme Court, interpreted the definition of disability under the ADA so narrowly that by the time the law was about 12 or 13 years old, almost no one was covered under the law anymore as a person with a disability. Or as I used to say, when the ADA would have been having its bar mitzvah back in New York City, where I was born, it clearly needed a sibling. Needed something else to set it right. And I was lucky enough to be able to work on that. And in fact, one of the reasons why I agreed when the White House asked if I wanted to be a commissioner at the EEOC was because I thought it was time to be part of the second part of law creation, to work on the regulations that would implement that law. So the text of a law, the text of regulations can be critical variables. Now, sometimes when laws go off to court, unexpected good things happen, as opposed to the bad thing that happened on the ADA. So my second kid/law is the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, which has been in utero since 1993. A little bit of a problem. By the way, for you law students, the very first draft of ENDA, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, was based on a law school exam that I wrote in 1992. So if you think those exams don't do anything, sometimes. Well, ENDA, if and when it gets, well, when, not if, because it will, when it gets enacted, will explicitly prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity in the workplace. And that bill has been pending in Congress. But a funny thing has happened on the way to its non-passage. The courts have had to interpret what the word sex means in our existing federal law. Now, in the 1970s, courts could not imagine how sex could include coverage for people based on transgender status or sexual orientation. But that began to change in the courts in the 1990s and 2000s. Like, hello, if it was fine for me to be your employee when you thought I was a man, but then you found out that I was born a biological woman and you fired me, that is taking sex or gender into account in a way that is invalid under existing law. And in fact, just 2 weeks ago, the EEOC issued a unanimous decision stating that all transgender people are covered under existing sex discrimination law. So again, the text of a law as passed by a legislature, interpreted by an agency, is an incredibly important variable for the achievement of a social justice goal. By virtue of your graduation here today, you have been given, and you've heard this, an amazing gift and responsibility. You can now be part of that world of law creation. You might do so by working in a legislature or talking to a legislature, by working in an agency or talking to an agency, by arguing a case to a judge or becoming a judge. Whatever the venue, you have an opportunity to be part of law creation. But here's the thing, and here's my little pitch on social media. You need to keep up with law creation. If you follow the right people on, let's say, Twitter, they will tweet about the latest law case or the latest thing coming out of an agency. And for all of you worried about debt, and I think there might be a few of you here in terms of law school debt, Twitter is free, and Twitter has not paid me for this because they can't. Okay, but here's the thing, guys. While law is a key variable for social change, indeed often a necessary one, it's not sufficient. We also need policies in practice. We need the elements of social change, whether embodied in a law or not, to be absorbed into the sinews of an organization. So let me tell you a story that brought this home to me dramatically. Last year, I went to Belgrade, Serbia to speak at the second annual LGBT rights conference in the Balkans. David Perkis, who actually brought my name to the attention of the group here, heard me speak at that conference. That's because the Williams Institute, located here at UCLA, co-sponsored that conference. And Professor Nan Hunter, who is here today in the audience, and who is, and this is not in rank order of importance, a professor and associate dean at Georgetown Law running the LLM program at Georgetown, the legal scholarship director at Williams Institute, and my partner and the love of my life, also went to speak at the conference. The night before we attended the conference, Nan and I met with a group of about 20 lesbian activists. We just sat in a room for about 2 hours and talked, and we asked them, so what do you want to talk about? And it was amazing, because almost every question was about, what is it like to be out? Like they said, wait, you're out? You're really out? Totally out? Your students know you're out? Wait, you're a couple that's out? You're a professional couple that's out? It was intense. The atmosphere of fear in that room, the oppressive sense of the closet, the shared knowledge in that room that people outside thought that you were either sick or criminal and would beat you up for it, was palpable. But here's the irony. I found out at the conference the next day that in Serbia they have passed a national law that prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation in the workplace. But we haven't done that yet here on the national level. But of course, a law is only as good as its absorption in practice, and only as strong as social norms can support. So practically no one in Serbia uses that law because they are terrified about coming out as gay in the first place. Conversely, here in the US, the fact that a national law has not passed for umpteen years has meant that pressure has come from other sources, state law, unions, corporate affinity groups, all pushing for the adoption of protection for gay people inside companies, inside organizations. And those protections, in turn, have encouraged more gay people to be out and visible. And more gay people being out and visible is part of what helped someone like our president, President Obama, just 2 days ago to say, you know what? Gay people should be able to get married. So sometimes the fact that a national law has not passed is not entirely bad if it has generated other efforts towards justice. And given that, I urge you to think of your role as lawyers with respect to the policies and practice in a twofold manner. First, if a law has passed, you will be the essential messengers to explain that law. Prior to showing up in any court or before any agency, your job will be able to help your clients understand, and get this, guys, in plain English, understand in plain English what a law requires so they can absorb that into their organization. But second, you should think of your professional responsibility as going beyond your responsibility to individual clients. By virtue of the fact that you are entering a profession that is all about justice, People in your communities will legitimately look to you as leaders in justice. If you accept that responsibility, you can move social justice forward by supporting a range of steps towards justice, even in the absence of a national law. So finally, let's talk about the third variable, social norms. And this is for a bunch of your people out there. So I want to talk about the goal of valuing and supporting caregiving in our society, something I've worked on for many years. So for you folks back in the audience, mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, friends, you know what it takes to raise children, including the ones up here. One of the best tweets I read about a month ago and then retweeted had this headline: "Mothering is not the hardest job." That made me want to read the article. You see, that's the trick of Twitter. You want to have your tweet be interesting enough to make people want to click on the article. Well, I did click, and the article was great. And it explained, mothering is not the hardest job, parenting is. Think about it. What social norm are we reinstating and supporting each time we say mothering is the hardest job? Why do we gender it in that way? Well, I know why we do, but I think we would all benefit if the social norm became that parenting is a really hard job, because it is. And that would go a long way to affecting both laws and policies in practice. And now, let's flip it around. For all you graduates up here, you're going to want to take care of all those folks back there at some point, as well as take care of your own children, you know, if you opt for the biological kind instead of laws. So the website of Workplace Flexibility 2010, which is a project I created and ran for 7 years, has a ton of ideas for laws and policies and practice to make workplaces better for people with caregiving responsibilities. All cool, great ideas. But to achieve real change, we also need to change the social norm that presumes that if you are truly committed to your caregiving responsibilities, and oh my God, actually act out on those commitments, you're not really that committed to your job. That's crazy. That's wrong. But we have to change the social assumptions. We need law, policies and practice, and changes in social norms in any social justice goal, and you guys can be a part in all of that. So, here's what I want to end with. I want to end with explaining how the time that people say that you might waste on social media is actually an essential part of achieving social justice. So to me, one of the pluses of being on Twitter and Facebook was getting a sense of how social media can start and amplify a national conversation on social justice. And I watched that happen with the Planned Parenthood thing, you know, the Susan B. Komen Foundation saying they weren't going to fund Planned Parenthood. I watched it again in terms of Rush, you know who I'm talking about, attacking Sandra Fluke. So I didn't tweet on either of those. But when Trayvon Martin got killed, I did tweet and then retweet on that. And then I watched how other folks retweeted my tweets about Trayvon Martin. I was one small, tiny piece of the echo chamber around the death of Trayvon Martin. But what made that echo chamber work was that there were thousands and thousands of people like me, each of us being one small piece of that social justice conversation. Now, I'm never going to be a one-woman person spending hours on Twitter sending out messages like some of the people I follow. But I think it makes a difference when I choose to tweet or retweet on a social justice message. And I think that will be the same for all of you as lawyers. If you embrace your role as someone to whom the community looks to as a leader of justice, you being part of the echo chamber of social media can make a difference. So here it is. We are all unique individuals. We all bring our complex, full, rich identities to our work, our friendships, our love relationships, our social causes. As lawyers, you will now have an additional identity, and with it, an amazing gift and responsibility. You can be part of the creation of law, whether through work with legislatures, agencies, or courts. You can ensure that laws are well understood and absorbed into the sinews of organizations, and you can be leaders who shape policies and practice. And finally, you can be part of shaping and changing social norms. I have loved my professional life. I could not be happier with having chosen law as a profession. I have felt that what I do helps make the world a better place, and that's an amazing gift. So my wish and my blessing to you on this graduation day is that each of you will feel the same joy and same fulfillment in your work. And every one of you can. Every one of you can both help your individual clients and be a leader in your community. You now have the gifts of skills and status to bring the variables of law, policies and practice, and social norms together in the pursuit of social justice. So congratulations, class of 2012, and go out there and do good.
During this part of the program, we will be doing the conferring of the hoods for the LLM class of 2012. I would ask Laura Stemple, David Ginsberg, Vic Telesino, and Russell Korobkin to join me for this part of the program.
Naoko Watanabe.
Andreas Hirner.
Linda Sim.
Javier Luevanos Ortiz de Rosas.
Deland Kejin G.
Julia Moser.
Felipe Saona.
Gabriela Moretti.
Sibyl Meliger.
Yuko Kanemaru.
Ava Irene Villa.
Gabriela Garcia Amande.
Kevin Anthony Custodio.
Melissa Salazar.
Jorg Stefan Neubauer.
Audrey Kubizol.
Julia Galetti de Lima.
Audrey Marie Manera.
Juliette Estrade.
Tess Balakrishnan.
Isabella Sliva.
Nicholas Ramelet.
Alice Jane Everly.
Gilbert J. Bradshaw.
Dara Fallon.
Alan David Donishrod.
Pimpimon Watanahathai.
Dina Nam.
Vorafan Chongpensuklert.
Alexander Endel.
Tepikanika Tan.
Mihailo Louvris.
Takashi Kobayashi.
Serena Upadhyaya.
Hiroshi Tanzaki.
Insa Maria Janssen.
Young Jun Lee.
Louis Renault Olu.
Roger Ryan Bracken.
Sebastian Valdiviso.
Michael Schwiertz.
Marcela G. Moreno.
Martin Asmus.
Benjamin Timothy Kennedy.
Marika Asmus.
Brian Scott Hance.
Nina Yaris Cohen.
Yasufumi Miki.
Chi Liu.
Bruno Bello Espindola.
Ana Margarita Gonzalez.
Yang Du.
Nomonde Nyembe.
Wangjiang Wang.
Elisabeth Gisladottir.
Karthik Shastri.
Manognia Yaluri.
Eduardo Lobos.
Shwethrambra Mani.
Neil Sasmonyer.
Satoshi Hosokawa.
Berik Birjanovich Biashev.
Min Young Park.
Jiaying Yu.
Sung Soo Han.
Cholho Kwan.
Juhi Song.
Yangsu Lee.
Jusung Oh.
Junhyung Kim.
Hiraku Asakawa.
Sophie Turner.
Surabhi Shukla. Sheriff Amanda Sanger.